Hello friends, in this video I'm gonna explain you what kind of IELTS score you need if you want to apply for say 482 visa, that is temporary visa, and if you want to apply for say PR visa 189 or 190. So what kind of English IELTS test scores are required? So let us see in detail. Let us start with the short-term visa, that is 482 temporary visa. What IELTS scores are required? Primary applicant needs to prove English proficiency. So if you have any dependent, then they don't need to prove the English proficiency. Now there are two streams in 482, as we know, short-term stream and medium to long-term stream. In a short-term stream, you need at least 5 band score with a score of at least 455 in each of the test components. So there are 4 test components, so in each of them you need to have at least 4.5. On average you should have 5 band score if your visa is for short term. Then if you are applying for medium to long term, then you should have overall score of 5. You should have 5 in each test component, that is reading, listening, writing and speaking. And all that you should have minimum 5. So that's the main difference between short term and medium to long term. And certain occupations need high scores, like teacher or say nurse. All these occupations need higher scores. Then what are the exemptions? Not everyone has to apply for the or clear this IELTS exam. There are some exemptions, so let us see what are the exemptions. You are a passport holder from Canada, New Zealand, Republic of Ireland, United Kingdom or the United States of America, then you don't need to appear for that IELTS exam. Then another exemption is there: you have completed at least 5 years of full-time study in a secondary or higher education institution where instructions was conducted in English. So if you have done say your schooling or higher education 11th 12th and then after graduation in English medium, then also you can get the exemption. Then you are nominated for an occupation which will be performed at a diplomatic or consular mission of another country. In that case you don't need to give the IELTS. Person is an employee upon overseas business who is coming to Australia to work for that company or their associate entity, and the position is guaranteed annual earnings of at least 96,400 Australian dollars. So if your annual compensation is this much, then you don't need to clear this IELTS exam. If you have a license, you don't need to give this IELTS exam. Now let us move on to the PR visa, that is permanent visa. Now permanent visa, you need to have higher English scores, IELTS scores. And another thing is all applicants need to appear for the IELTS. Like in short-term visa, your dependent partner do not need to appear for IELTS exam, but in PR case you need to have you need to prove the English proficiency of all the adult applicants. And in that for primary applicant there are different rules, and for secondary or the dependents there are different rules or the scores. For primary applicant, they should have a competent English. You should have at least 6 in each of the 4 test components. So band score of 6 is required in each of the components of IELTS exam. And test should have been completed 3 years immediately prior to lodging the visa application. Then a dependent applicant must have a functional English. Functional English means average score they need 4.5 in IELTS. If your dependent is not able to score that much in IELTS, then you will have to pay this much fee, additional fee called as second installment, so which is around $5,000 you need to pay if your dependent is not able to clear the IELTS exam. And test must have been completed within 12 months and of the visa application lodgement, or can be completed during visa application processing as well. Even if you do not give the IELTS exam, there are some exemptions like assessment of functional English. You can assessment of functional English from a service provider of the adult migration English program for eligible visa holders in Australia. So there are some institutes where these institutes can provide a certificate saying that you have got proficient English, say functional English. The next is completed all years of primary education and at least 3 years of secondary education in an education institution in or outside Australia, and all instructions were in English. So even if you have done primary education like say first standard to say 5th standard, then 6th standard, 7th standard, like that, in English medium, then you don't need to give IELTS exam. Then another exception or another way to prove your proficiency is completed at least 5 years of secondary education in an institution in or outside Australia, that is from 5th to 10th. If you have done the education in English, then you don't need to give IELTS exam. Then another way to prove efficiency is This is all these conditions or the rules are applicable for only secondary applicant, not for the primary. Successfully completed at least 1 year of full-time study or equivalent part-time study towards a degree, higher degree in an institution in Australia, and all instructions were given in English. So if your education is done in Australia for 1 year, then you don't need to give IELTS. And finally, if you have done 2 years of degree in India or say outside Australia, and all instructions were given in English, then also you don't need to give IELTS. And obviously there are some exemptions for the United citizens of UK, United States of America, Canada, New Zealand, Republic of Ireland. You don't need to give IELTS. This explains like what kind of IELTS scores are required for primary applicants as well as dependent for these visas: temporary visa, 482 visa, and PR visa, that is 189 and 190. If you have more questions, let me know through the comments.